As far back as I can remember, I struggled to brush my teeth. I remember being like 6 years old and literally wrestling with my parents who tried to get me to do this basic thing, which was one of the few instances in which they had actively attempted to get me to do the thing and also attempted to persuade me to do the thing prior to that more violent encounter. And that was just one out of a handful of times when they had actually tried to get me to do the thing, which almost always resulted in them not being persuasive, and them being violent, and them being angry and confrontational, which, if you know anything about kids, unless they are purely fearful, it's probably not going to be convincing. Because the moment that the kid is used to the anger and the fighting, they're not going to take your authority seriously, which is what happened with me. I could not be persuaded to do something as basic as that, or anything for that matter, with threats, aggression, insults, or violence. It just wasn't going to work for me. That was not my temperament as a child, and I don't think that's the temperament of most children. But as a consequence of that heavy-handed approach, I did not feel any real incentive to do this thing that I was supposed to do. It was never explained to me why I was supposed to do it, not until much later, and most of the time, once again, they did not make me do it. They did not even attempt to persuade me or take this heavy-handed approach. That was kind of a last resort that would show up randomly. If you picked a number out of a hat, you might find the number of times it was. They really did not put that much effort into getting me to do the things that I was supposed to do. And when they did, it probably had more of a negative effect, as in it was more likely to lead to the opposite outcome of the one that they wanted to occur. So I didn't have good role models. In addition to the fact that my father had already been losing a lot of his teeth by the time that I was that age. Nowadays, most of them are gone, but also in terms of the way that I was literally being taught to do these things, or rather the lack of teaching that existed in my household. And with showering, it was the same thing. Now, when I was really young, I was taught how to take a bath. There was a little bit more involvement there, but I got a little bit older, and it wasn't long before I was just always taking them by myself. I could take as long as I wanted because I didn't go to school, and I was just doing my own thing. I get a little bit older, I start showering, and I end up showering like pretty infrequently, basically only when I was forced to. And whenever I would shower, I would just lay in there for like an hour with the hot water like blasting, because I found it difficult to take proactive steps to wash myself. I needed to kind of wait around and fill my brain with, I don't know, bliss from being under the hot water. And then at the very end, as the water was starting to get cold, I would take the shampoo and, get myself situated. I didn't feel too bad about this because there were 2 bathrooms in the house, but it was this strange ordeal where I would look at my parents or siblings and they would wash up, and they would do it without any assistance whatsoever fairly quickly. 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the absolute max, but normally it was 10 minutes or less that they'd take in the shower, and then they were done. Sometimes it was 5 minutes. And I remember that astounding me as a child and a young teenager. I couldn't comprehend how they were able to do that. I felt like something was just wrong with my brain that made it to where as soon as I got in, I didn't have the energy or the motivation to do these basic things that I sort of knew how to do, and I just lay there. It was like this executive dysfunction, this lack of motivation at my core, And I think it relates to the broader experience of depression that I had throughout my youth. Because when you're very isolated, as I was in that rural area and as a homeschooler, and when your most common interactions with your family are being yelled at or hit or begrudged in some way, belittled in some way, it not only wears down on your self esteem, but also your will to do things, your will to live, to do things that are needed to live. And as I got a little bit older, still as a child, but by the time I was in my early teens, I came to understand at a pretty intuitive level why it was necessary to do all the hygiene stuff that I had been, to put it charitably, inconsistent with. I had came to understand why you need to do all that stuff. I understood it a little bit before that, but at that point I really understood it. And I just didn't care. I was like, I want to die anyway. Nothing means anything. This is all terrible. Who fucking cares? I don't want to do this. And so I was literally like the anarchists against bedtimes of people, or of half people, whatever you want to call minors. And that was bad. I shouldn't have to explain why it's bad to not do these things that will ultimately make you feel better and are part of your routine, because not just because they'll make you feel better and they're good for you, but also because having them in your routine is itself a facilitator for success. Doing something every single day to take care of yourself makes you much more likely to do other things that you need to do every single day to take care of yourself, generally speaking. Now, if you're in a situation like the one I'm in now, where you still struggle to do these things, it can take so much energy to do them and so much willpower that it might almost seem like it's making other things more difficult to do, because like you have a limited set of resources and you're diverting them towards this or that thing. But it only seems like that. In actuality, it's helping you climb towards this broader goal, which is normalcy and being able to function in society. Needless to say, I smelled pretty bad by the time I was like 14. Like I said, I would go several days without showers sometimes. When I would shower, it would be these long, luxurious showers, that's what my dad called it at least, where I just stay in there for fucking an hour sometimes, driving up the water bill. And I would struggle to focus for long enough to do these things in the shower that I was supposed to do. So sometimes I would just get my hair wet, not even wash it, or I'd wash it badly, and I just wouldn't care after a certain point. I mean, I basically didn't care from the beginning, which is partially why, as I stated before, I struggled to do so many of these hygiene related things, not just showering, but also dental care. When you're in that nihilistic state, you start to focus only on the most temporal, transient, short-term pleasures, because you don't see the long-term happiness improving at all. You question whether even such a thing exists when you're depressed at that age, where you're experiencing a lot of impulsivity. You have a massive lack of perspective, which is what I had, culminating in these behaviors. But by the time I was, 14 and a little bit into 13 as well, like my parents were going back and forth from each other, separating, talking about divorce, and a lot of the time it was only my mom taking care of me, and we stayed, there together, even though she couldn't drive, even though it was very far out, and she still didn't make me do anything I was supposed to do. So at the same time that I was not doing my schoolwork, because I was homeschooled, but once again, not enforced, they were letting me slip by not doing these things, my depression continued to get worse, to the point where I was contemplating suicide every single day, even attempting it at times, and I especially was not washing myself. It got to a point where I had not showered in literally 6 months' time. There was a period of 6 months where I had not showered a single time. And my hair got really greasy and I smelled really bad and I had dandruff. But beyond that, it wasn't that bad. It honestly, I feel like it should have been a lot worse. There was some durability or resilience with my body, I guess. Back then, I would never be able to pull off something like that now without getting my face all scaly and everything else. Oh yeah, that reminds me. This skin condition that I have now hadn't kicked in yet, that I'm able to, for the most part, remedy with, like, Vaseline and hydrocortisone cream and regularly washing my hair, which I do every other day now, because I have successfully been able to implement a routine like that now. But at that time, that thing that you've seen in some of my videos where like my face would get all scaly and shit, that hadn't started happening yet. And when that began to happen, it was kind of like a wake-up call for me. It was something that helped me get motivated to actually learn how to consistently do some of this stuff. And it's a similar thing with cutting my fingernails as well. Like, if you look at a lot of my videos, even just from 2019, I'll have these really long fingernails where it'll look like gross and weird, and I would struggle to consistently cut them just because I was so depressed. And now I always make sure to trim them. You know, I never go out with long nails or end up with long nails. The one area that I still struggle with is incidentally the same area that I started this story with, and incidentally the same area that my father struggled with early in his childhood and his parents unsuccessfully got him to do, or to take care of rather, which is dental hygiene. This is something I still struggle with a lot, even though I can consistently shower now, consistently groom myself, and take care of all these other things you're supposed to take care of if you want to feel better and live a better life. I still struggle with dental hygiene, and there's been multiple periods of time where I've managed to brush teeth every day, at least once a day, if not twice. I think the longest I ever went doing it consistently was like a month, but I'm still struggling to do it consistently. And I think it's because I've gotten away with not doing anything about it for so long. Throughout my whole childhood, like literally the whole childhood, and also all my teen years and all of the recent years, I have never gone for more than a period of a month consistently brushing my teeth. Throughout all of that time, I would literally just not brush them. And I think because my diet for a very long time did not consist of almost any sugary or processed foods, I would eat pretty well, you know, a lot of like bread and rice and beans. I mean, peanut butter was in there, but I don't know how bad that is for your teeth. And some vegetables and noodles and stuff like that. I don't think there were that many consequences for my teeth. I mean, I didn't start drinking coffee until I was 17. I didn't drink soda almost at all throughout my whole childhood. And I think these things were beneficial to my teeth, even though I was not taking care of them in the way that I should have been. So to this day, I still struggle with this. And I think it's partially because I haven't had that wake-up call where the consequences get so dire and devastating that I'm like, okay, I have to do something about this. Even though I wasn't given the proper examples, even though I wasn't really taught how to do this, I just have to teach myself how to. I have to motivate myself to do it. I have to hold my own feet to the fire. And I've been able to do that with this other stuff. But with this, so far, I've seen these roadblocks where I'll feel a lack of energy, I'll feel depressed, unmotivated, I'll simply forget, which is I think the biggest culprit here, the fact that I'll consistently forget to take care of this thing. It sucks. I mean, it sucks, but it's how things are for right now. And hopefully, it won't be how things are for much longer, because I'm seeing myself turn things around in all these different ways every day now. But I've successfully turned them around when it comes to grooming myself, consistently eating and eating well, consistently showering and managing my hygiene in those respects, skincare as well. That's something that I do every single day. So this is kind of like the final battle. It's the thing that I've been neglecting my whole life. My whole life, I've been neglecting the health of my teeth. And it's the last thing that I need to turn around if I want to be able to function as a normal person. I thought that was going to be sleep, to be honest with you. I struggled with sleep my whole life as well, but I've conquered that. I sleep at relatively the same time every single night and have been doing so for months now. I think being with my wife helps with that a lot because she calms me down just by being next to me, and that eases my mind enough to get me to sleep. I thought that was going to be the final battle because there have been so many periods of time where I have been stuck awake for 3 days or even 4 days without any caffeine or any other drugs, just my own neuroticism driving me to that point. My own insomnia, trauma, PTSD, and so on. Those things were keeping me awake. The place that I was sleeping feeling unsafe was keeping me awake. But now, I'm perfectly safe, and I have that beautiful woman laying next to me every night. And so I get to sleep. I thought that was going to be the last thing that I've been neglecting, that I haven't been taking care of, that I'd have to fix. I thought that would be the hardest one. But no, for some reason, it's teeth. But it's not going to be much longer, because I am dedicating myself to resolving this each and every day now.